Hi, this is Nick Turner with TWI Leadership Solutions. I want to welcome you to my website and hope you're here to learn a little bit more about TWI and what it is. So this first video is going to be just an introduction to the overall history and concept of TWI. I am not an expert at these sweet technological videos. I'm an instructor by trade. So bear with me. We'll try to make them as pleasant as possible. We'll give you guys the knowledge and hopefully some of the understanding that you came here to find. So with that, let's begin. So first off, I'd like to start by talking about what TWI is. So TWI is a core set of classes, three main modules. How do I train people? How do I lead people? And how do I improve processes? So now let's go in and take a look at the history of the TWI program. So where did TWI come from? Why was it formed? Well, if you think back to the U.S. in the 1930s, what was going on? We had the Great Depression. What helped us pull out of that Great Depression from the 1920s to the early 1930s? A large part of that was an explosion in manufacturing. So the growth of the manufacturing sector exploded, which was not a big deal because we had a workforce that was hungry, that had experience, and wanted to get back making production, doing their jobs. However, in the early 1940s, what happened to that workforce? World War II reached its way to American shores. Many of the individuals who were sent overseas with a rifle came from manufacturing facilities, came from the farm fields. So there was an even bigger ramp up in production because now we had to support not just the Allies, but we had to support our troops that we sent overseas as well. So a big ramp up in production in the 1940s. However, our workforce shrank. The experience in the workforce was left to minimal. New individuals got a chance to get into manufacturing for the first time. Women were entering the manufacturing force for the first time. Minorities who never got a chance before were now entering the manufacturing space. Elderly who have already done their time were pulled back in to help the production for the war effort. So we had a huge increase in production, and we had a huge swelling of, or huge dwindling of experience in the workforce. So the U.S. government saw that this was going to be a problem. So what they did is they brought the best and the brightest from the manufacturing world together. They said, all right, here's our problem. We need a lot of production. We need a lot of production of different things than we were producing before. Car plants were now making airplanes. Sewing machine shops were now making rifle casings. So how can we meet this challenge? How can we give the people that are now working in these manufacturing spots, how can we give them the skills necessary to get the job done effectively as a supervisor, as a leader on a manufacturing plant floor? So this is where the TWI system came from. What they said is there's three basic things that every supervisor has to be able to do. The physical things they have to be able to do. One, every single supervisor, regardless of job, manufacturing type, or profession, really, has to have a skill of instructing. They have to be able to train people. Next, every supervisor has to have a skill in leadership. They have to be able to get people to want to listen to them, want to follow them. And thirdly, everyone has to have the ability to take a look at their process and simplify it, to eliminate, combine, rearrange, or simplify it down to make it the simplest, most effective process that we can have. So this is how the three main modules of the TWI program were created. Job instruction, how do I train? Job relations, how do I lead? And job methods, how do I improve my processes? We'll dive a little bit more into that in a bit. Before we get to that though, as you can see on this beautiful slide, I want to talk about the word production. So what is production? Production is a word that we use quite often in the manufacturing world. Hey, we got to get production out. Hey, you got to focus on production. Production. But what exactly is production? Is it just making things? Is it that simple? In TWI, there's a very clear definition for what production is. It's not just making things. It's also making things that are of good quality, which means that it meets the customer's specifications, meets their print, and meets or exceeds their expectations. I cannot continue production if I do not have a quality product. The second part of production, we have to have that quality product delivered on time. Delivery, both internally and externally. If I have continued delays, if my dwell times are way too slow, it doesn't matter how good a quality product I have, eventually my customer is going to go elsewhere. So production is a quality product that's delivered on time. The next piece, cost. It's done so at the appropriate cost. Cost considers everything from labor hours to scrap rates to cost of raw materials, cost of machines, so on and so forth. If my costs exceed my spending, I cannot continue to produce stuff. So a quality product delivered on time at the appropriate cost, safely, which is the fourth part of production. I cannot continue to produce, I cannot continue to make stuff if I keep having injuries. Injuries are not just of people. Injuries are accidents to machines. If I have a injury of a machine or a person, what happens to production? Of course, we have to shut it down. We have to do an investigation. We have to find out the root cause. We have to decide on some countermeasures. We have to follow up on those countermeasures. I cannot continue to produce if I'm not focused on safety as well. Quality product, delivered on time at the appropriate cost, safely, and the most important piece of production, which sometimes we tend to overlook, is the people side. Morale. Morale is the most important piece to production. How can that possibly be? How can morale be more important than safety? How can morale be more important than our quality? If we do not have a happy workforce, if we do not have a workforce that wants to do the job properly, can I ever reach my safety goals? Or are people going to be taking shortcuts? People are going to not be following policies. Can I reach my quality goals? Do you think with low morale my people are going to care much about how much detail and attention to detail is put into their work? What about our costs? What does poor morale, low morale do for costs? How much more scrap do we have? How much more rework? How much more time do we spend dealing with people problems than dealing with our production issues? Our delivery times, are they going to increase or decrease with improved or lowered morale? Morale is the base of production. People are the base of production. It doesn't matter how much automation you have. Guess who sets that sucker up? Guess who runs that sucker? Guess who programs that sucker? And guess who inspects it? Guess who does the maintenance? We cannot escape the fact that production is a lot more encompassing than just making things. It's making good things at the appropriate time, at the appropriate cost, safely, while maintaining and enhancing our employees' morale. If we want to fix our production problems, we cannot do it without the help of our people, which is why morale is a huge piece of the TWI program. So when it comes to production, there's always going to be things that lower it. It's inevitable. Humans are flawed, machines are flawed, processes are flawed. There's going to be problems. So let's look through some of these problems that we typically run into. Some of the problems that we commonly see at manufacturing plants across the U.S. We'll go through a couple of them. Scrap. I bet none of you guys have problems with scrap. Rework. No problems with rework. People showing up late. No, that never happens, does it? Machine downtime. Man, that's killer. Not enough materials, lack of storage space, low morale, turnover, struggling to get new people, delayed turnaround times, people not getting along, lack of use of PPE, low employee engagement, friction between shifts, inconsistency of departments, a lack of communication. I could go on for days and days and days about all the problems that are typical of any manufacturing plant or any facility that has humans. So, what's the point of looking at the problems we face? What do all of these problems have in common? Regardless of the problem, regardless of the situation, what is a common thread throughout all these? You guessed it. People are involved. People are at the center of these problems. They're trying to fix these problems. They're trying to address these problems. They're causing these problems. We cannot avoid the fact that to fix any of these problems, we cannot ignore the human. So, can any one of these problems be solved by one human? If we take a look at any of them, scrap. Can we solve scrap? Even if you're the president, CEO of the company, can you solve the scrap by yourself? No. What about if you have a small think tank, if you have some sort of specialty group to solve this problem? Will that fix the low employee engagement? Well, we can try. What must happen to reduce or solve these problems? The answer is every single person in that facility must be handling these problems from the same angle. And what do I mean by that, the same angle? How easy is it to think of this problem, say a quality problem? Well, that's a problem for production. Well, it's a morale problem. Well, that's HR's department. They can figure it out. What do you think the chances are that everyone in their own way is trying to solve each and every one of these problems? They come into work and they say, man, this machine didn't run right. It just gave us 40 bad pieces. We have to redo them. What do you think the chances are one person from production will try to solve it by rerunning that machine and running it faster to catch up? Someone from quality will come along and say, no, that's not how we fix that problem. We fix that problem by slowing down, paying attention to the details. Someone from safety will come in and say, hey, we can't fix this problem right now because our employees are running in an unsafe manner. They're pushing it too fast. Someone from the management team will say, well, I've got a customer. Customer needs this product. We got to get it out. Every single one of those people is trying to do the right thing. They're trying to solve production, quality, delivery, cost, safety, and morale. However, they're all doing it from a different angle, a different approach. Where TWI comes in is to give everyone a base set of skills, problem-solving skills, to figure out how we can attack each of these problems from the same way. Rather than pulling each other apart, now we're pulling on that same rope together. So let's take a look at how TWI goes about teaching this unified skill. So TWI teaches that there's 5 needs for good supervision. Remember, I told you earlier that there are 3 main courses of TWI: how to train, how to lead, how to improve processes. There are more pieces to the leadership role. Keep in mind, this is the basics of leadership. You can spend your entire life focusing on just the basics and never master it. It's that encompassing of the skills and knowledge we're going to look at. So TWI says that the 5 needs of good supervision, as to say, these are the 5 things every supervisor, regardless of job or position, has to have. The 5 needs are divided into 2 aspects. One aspect of knowledge, one aspect of skill. So what's the difference between knowledge and skill? Well, knowledge we acquire by experience. Knowledge we acquire by reading a book. Knowledge we acquire by watching videos, going to college. We acquire knowledge in many, many, many ways. What is the only one way to acquire a skill? The only one way to acquire a skill is by repetition practice, doing that task. So knowledge is what you know, what you understand, and there are many ways to learn knowledge. Skill is what you can do, and there is only one way to improve a skill. So when we're looking at the 5 needs of good supervision, we're looking at it from those 2 angles. What does every supervisor have to know? And what does every supervisor have to be able to do? So first we're going to look at the knowledge side of things. Knowledge of the work. So knowledge of the work. Every supervisor, to solve the problems that we talked about earlier, must have a thorough understanding of their work, their procedures, their machines, their processes, and most importantly, their people. If you think about even the most simplistic job, say your job was to staple papers. That's your only job. That's all you have to worry about, stapling papers all day. Even in a job that simple, will you ever fully understand the work? Will you ever be able to maximize your understanding of the work? It's possible. Why? Because things change. Because we get new types of staples. Because the paper is of different quality this time. Because we went with a different vendor. Because we got a new stapler. Because where we staple has changed. Because the person I'm handing the papers into decides they want a different way to staple it. They want to turn it 90 degrees to the right. There is no such thing, especially in complex manufacturing jobs, as fully understanding your knowledge of the work. It is a constant focus that each supervisor has to focus on improving upon. This knowledge of the work is not taught in the TWI system. Why can I not teach you guys your knowledge of the work? Because it is impossible. This must be handled locally. Each and every department, each and every area, each and every plant must have their own local practices for expanding the understanding of the work, expanding the understanding of the process, expanding the understanding of their people. Next, let's take a look at the knowledge of responsibilities. So every supervisor has to focus on improving their understanding of the work, as we just covered, but we also have to focus on improving our understanding of our responsibilities. What happens if I do not know where my job starts and my job ends, and the next person's job starts and their job ends? And we have these gaps in between what we think our responsibilities are. There's jobs that must be done inside those gaps. And this job that needs to get done, assembling this widget in this manner, only gets done once it is too late. And we realize, oh geez, this has to be out tomorrow. Hurry, rush, get this done. If there is not clarity in the understanding of responsibilities from person A to person B to person C, it is bad for them because now they're rushing to do this work. It is bad for the supervisor because now they have to switch around their scheduling and push something else back that was on time. And it's bad for the company because now we have to spend more resources on the lower quality of the product, of the longer delivery times of our other products, of the excess cost that it takes in switching that machine over from product A to product B, or taking person B from over here and over here, and they were supposed to get this done, and now understanding responsibilities is one of the biggest way to prevent the problems we talked about earlier. I cannot teach you guys your responsibilities. It's completely up to the plant, completely up to the departments to say, where does my job start and my job end? Where does the operator's job take over? And where does their job end? Where does maintenance take over? Where does their job end? Safety take over? Where does their job end? If we do not continue to have these conversations upwards, downwards, left, right, to figure out shift A, shift B, shift C, what is their job, their job, their job. If we do not continue to try to clarify these each and every day, we're going to run into the same problems over and over again. So again, on the knowledge side of things, there are two pieces every supervisor has to focus on improving to help solve those problems. Understanding their work better and understanding their responsibilities better. Now let's get into the skill side of things. This is where TWI comes in. There are three pieces to the skill side for the 5 needs of good supervision. Remember, we're talking about the basics of supervision. There are many more advanced skills and knowledges that certain specialty jobs may need. Scheduling, knowledge of XYZ. We are talking about the basics that are universal to any supervisor's role. So every supervisor first has to have a skill in instructing. This skill in instructing is covered in the job instruction portion of the TWI program. Training is something that is consistently overlooked. We think because someone is a good operator, they're automatically going to be a good trainer. That is not always the case. Training is a skill that is acquired through practice, and good training consists of three separate parts. First, planning for that training. I've got to figure out who to train for which job by what date. I cannot assume everyone needs to be trained in everything, or training only needs to be done as the problems come up. I want to be proactive. So anybody that goes through a job instruction course will learn, first off, the number one biggest piece of any kind of good training is having a good plan. I want to have a primary. I want to have a backup, and I want to have backup, and I want to have an emergency for every single one of my positions. After our planning is done, then we teach in job instruction. We've got to prepare for that training. The first time I think about that training shouldn't be when that human's in front of me on day one saying, do I want to be here or not? I don't know. We'll see how this goes. And the trainer goes, okay, we're here. All right, let's throw you over here for now. Just do this, 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 this. I want to make sure I'm prepared for that training before it happens. So job instruction teaches the first thing you do to prepare is make a breakdown. We'll do a more detailed video of each of the different modules later. But for a brief description of what a breakdown is, it's a note from yourself to yourself with all the unnecessary words taken out, just to help you keep on track on training, to keep that brain from going down a rabbit hole, to keep that brain focused on what are the important parts of getting this job done. Not all the knowledge, that will come with time, that will come with experience. What is the basics to get across the first time they do the job? So we make our breakdown sheet. We write it down physically, so we have a cheat sheet when we're doing our training. And then we set up the work site. We make sure it's clean and is in actual working conditions, and we get everything ready for that training. I'm bringing the proper tools. I'm making sure I have all the materials I need to show them the job enough times. I do not want to set a bad example first off. People don't learn by what you say. People learn by copying the actions you take. If you are not prepared for your training when you get in front of someone, what are the chances that they're not going to be prepared when they do that job and when they go to show someone else? Job instruction especially is all about setting the right impression from the start. So again, we talked about the first part of job instruction is to plan for that training with a training timetable. Secondly, we've got to prepare for that training, make a breakdown, get everything ready, and arrange the work site. Next, we have to implement that training. And in implementing that training, just like everything in TWI, there's a 4-step process, which I'll put here on the screen for you guys to see. This card is not the tool. This card is useless. It's just a piece of cardboard, laminated, sweet, sweet, beautiful blueness. But understanding the words written on that card and practicing how to use it is what is taught in job instruction. Remember, we're teaching skills with TWI. There is nothing we do in TWI that will not be verified through the participants practicing in the classroom and on the floor. So to implement the training properly, we follow the 4-step process. The first thing we do, of course, we get everything ready. We prepare that worker. We want to make sure they're in the right mindset. If they're not in the right mindset, they're not going to be able to focus on that training, and it's going to be frustrating for me. It's going to be frustrating for them. I want to find out their experience. I want to see what they've done similar before. I want to find out anything I can to make sure that they're mentally prepared for the training. Second thing I do, second step of implementing job instruction, is now I've got to show them the job. 1 time, 2 times, 7 times. As I'm showing them job, I'm not using my blabberjaws. I'm sticking to my breakdown sheet I made previously. And there are 3 important steps to this. First important step, turn on the machine. Key point on that, wait for the green light. Reason for that key point, I want to make sure that the machine is ready before I press the start button. The second important step is to load the machine. Key point on that, both hands. Reason for that key point, if the part slips, you can damage the blade. It's not about having good work instructions, which we'll get into in my more detailed job instruction video. It's just a guide to help me stick to what I know is the minimal I need to get across. So I'm showing them the job and I'm giving them just the important steps, key points, or reason for the key points. For simple jobs, I may show them one time. For more difficult jobs, it may be 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, depending on how critical and important that job is. I only go into step 3, where I have them try out the job only when I think that they'll be able to do it, not while I'm gone, but while I'm right there next to them, helping them. Give them a little bit of Bob Ross. Oh no, don't forget that little guy. Gotta get that little guy. We want to make sure they do the job as many times as I think is necessary until I'm confident as a trainer that they know how to do the job. And that's just one part. Not only are they going to physically do the job and have me watch, I'm going to have them explain that job. Not in my words. I don't need them to say, first important step is start the machine. We don't need a robot parroting everything I said. I need a human being understanding what those words mean. Hey man, just go ahead and do this job again and explain it to me in your own words. What are you doing? How are you doing it? Why do you do it that way? All right. We continue that until I'm 100% positive I know they know. How many times do we finish our training when we are not 100% sure they know the job and can do the job? We've got to make sure that we are giving them the opportunity to do that job properly right the first time, and we're giving ourselves the opportunity to make sure that our time spent wasn't wasted. The last step of good proper instruction is following up, checking our results. We got to make sure that the training stuck. I've got to build a habit, a good habit in them right after that training ends. So what do? I give them a task and I say, hey, so I just started up this machine, showed you how, you did it a couple times. I'd like you to start up this machine once every hour, every time it needs it for the next 3 days. I'll be by to check on you in 2 days. And we've got to make sure we actually do those checks. We cannot let them feel like they're alone. On the flip side, we cannot let them feel like we're smothering them. We got to give them a little freedom, but we want to make sure that they're still doing the job the way we already verified that they know how to do it. So when it comes to job instruction, we'll get more detailed into that, as I said earlier. It's all about setting a good expectation up front, setting the right example. How many people have left in our doors, out of our doors, not because of any other reason, but they didn't know what they're doing, and they're constantly getting yelled at and hurried up and rushed, and people going, you'll never learn. If our people are not learning, can we really say that we are training? Next, I'd like to take a look at the next piece of skill of the 5 needs of good supervision, the skill in leading. So this is covered in the job relations portion of the TWI program. I'm going to grab that little blue boy or yellow boy. Again, we've got our handy dandy cheat sheet. This, again, is not the tool. It's just as a reminder to help to make sure that we're sticking to what we know is right. So the skill of leadership. When we're talking about leading, is that something that people are just born with? Are people born natural leaders? Think about day one on this planet. What was every single human doing day one on this planet? You guessed it. Every single human was crying, breathing that air, trying to understand what was going on around them. Not a single soul on this planet was born with a higher leadership skill. However, some people pick up the leadership skill a lot quicker. How do you think that is? What's the difference between a good leader and someone that struggles in the leadership realm? Chances are they've had more, 1, experience, They've had more chances to try things. They've had more chances to deal with people. Or two, and most important, they had good examples to follow, either as children, either by their parents, teachers, coaches, some past leaders they worked for. The skill of leadership is something that can be taught. It takes a long time to develop the skill of leadership. Because when you think about it, how complex are human beings? How many different neurons are firing in everyone's brain? Are any one of those neurons firing the same way as the next person and the next? No, we're infinitely different. However, the skill of leadership, learning how to get those people not just to do the job, but want to do that job, is something that we focus on in job relations. So how do we get someone to want to follow another human being? Well, there's many ways to go about it, but there are fundamental foundations that must be followed regardless of the approaches we take to leadership. For instance, there are 4 foundations taught in job relations. These foundations are not a fix-all for problems. However, if we use them consistently day in and day out, we will have less and less problems to deal with. This is the preventive side. There's 2 sides to job relations. Prevention with the foundations, which we're about to go over, and the reaction. What do I do when there's a problem that's already came up? Because I missed something, because I never set an expectation, I didn't follow up, I didn't train someone properly, the process sucks. We've got to make sure that we're focusing more on prevention. Job relations, a lot of time in job relations, if you're focusing through that class, a lot of time will be spent looking backwards in the past to saying, how could we have prevented this before this problem came up? So how do we prevent problems from coming up? The first foundation to prevent problems from coming up is a simple one. Let each worker know how they are doing. It sounds easy. It sounds, of course, I do that all the time. I let people know how they're doing. But think about the amount of times in a day you see something that's this much below standard. Someone shows up a minute late. Someone took off their iPro before they crossed that line. Someone just rolled their eyes at me. Someone just gave out bad product. That's not like them. If we do not address that small infraction underneath our expectations, what does that individual think the new standard is? If you're 1 minute late, this is being on time, and you're 1 minute late. If I say nothing, the new standard is now 1 minute late is acceptable. This happens one time, I shrug it off. They're a good person. Now it turns into 2 minutes. Man, they used to be good. What's going on? I don't know. I got to go put out this fire over here. It happens 3 times, 4 times. It happens 650 times over 5 years. I don't even know if there's that many days in 5 years. Yeah, there is. But my point is, we ignore a lot of these smaller things and let them roll until we are so frustrated by the pin here, 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 that we feel like there is no other option than I've got to teach them a lesson. I'm going to write them up. This is the 250th time. This is the 16th time. This is the 5th time they've done this. Well, guess what? It is not their fault that they are there. Whose fault is it when there's a standard, an expectation that is set, and I say nothing when you fall below it? The leadership role is a difficult role. It is impossible to be perfect. I don't care if you're the best, you got the most leadership experience on the planet. You'll never be able to fully master it. The culture changes, the people change, the generations change, the products change, every single thing. Family life changes. You'll never be able to fully master it. But our job is to be as consistent as possible in setting expectations, let each worker know how they're doing, and helping people get from where they're at to where they need to be. When someone falls below expectations, the typical thing it's a human knee-jerk reaction is, oh, we got to punish them, get them back there. The best way to get someone back to expectations is to sit down and say, hey, here's what I expect of you. Here's where you're at. What do you need from me to help you get from point A to point B? We're coaches. We are not dictators. The more we issue orders, you do this, you do this, you do this, do it this way, that way, this way, that way, this way, that way, this way, that way, the less likely our people are to be able to maintain themselves when I'm not around. If every time you turn your back or go on vacation everything falls apart, chances are it's because we're being too directive and we're not helping them become more independent. So first foundation to prevent problems, let each worker know how they are doing. Second foundation is give credit when due. Sounds pretty easy. Yeah, I give credit when due. But what about for that individual? Here's my standard. I know it's hard to see with my sausage fingers. Here's my standard. Here's where that individual's at. They're frustrating. They're so frustrating. But one day they go, boop. They're not to the standard yet. But I don't want to say anything. I don't want to give them a big head. What happens if we do not recognize that extra or unusual performance? Not compared to others. We don't compare this extra or unusual performance to others. That's not how the leadership role works. We compare it to that individual. Because remember, I need every single human pushing in that same direction. To get them pushing in that same direction, I've got to recognize even that little tiny movement from here to here. If I don't recognize that with them in some form or fashion, there are many ways to do it. I could give them a high five. I can say, whoa, man, you didn't screw it up that bad today. Nice. There are a billion ways to do it, but something has to be done. If they do not get recognized for the extra unusual performance, no matter if they're up here, down here, right here, and they're moving up, if they do not get recognized, why would they want to continue to do it? If you ever hear people say, man, no one cares about what I do anyways, why do I care? Chances are it's because we're not looking hard enough for when they do those improvements. The next foundation to prevent problems from coming up, tell people in advance about changes that will affect them. Why do we have to tell people in advance about changes that will affect them? Who watching this right now likes change? I can guarantee you there's at least 10% that say, I like change. We only like change when one condition occurs. We understand that change and agree with it. I guess that's 2. 1.5, we'll call it that. So if a change happens, how do we get people to adjust to it? Well, first off, we got to tell them in advance. If we're going to have a new policy that states we have to wear face shields for the next 60 days, I cannot lay out that policy the first time they hear about it. I've got to 2 weeks before say, hey, a new policy's coming up. I don't know too much about it right now. All I do know is we're probably going to be going to face shields for a couple months. The reason we're going to face shields is because the mask fiber has been clogging up our air vents. So that's not a real thing, guys. I don't know. I'm just using it as an example. Don't go tell your bosses, hey, we can't wear masks because of air vents. I'm not going to take responsibility for that. But we got to give them a reason behind it. Just because we give them a reason, the reason behind it, does that mean they're going to accept it? No, of course not. I've got to work with them to accept that change. What is the best way to get people to accept change? 100% the best way. Include them in the change process. Do an opinion survey. Hey, we want to hear your opinion on how we can best implement this rule. Hey, I'd like you to lead the charge in helping everyone understand. We've got to include our people in that change process itself. Change is not easy. We're creatures of habit. We've got to help ourselves, help others by letting them know in advance about those changes. The last foundation for good relations. Make best use of each person's ability. In its most simplistic form, what does that mean? To prevent problems, I put right people in the right job. However, that's not what it's all about. That's part of it. But what we're really talking about when we say make best use of each person's ability is I've got to continually give them a chance to grow and expand. And what I mean by that is not in position wise. I don't have to continually give them a chance to go up in positions. I mean, yes, that's beneficial. Of course, we need to do that for our people. But I've got to continually challenge their brain. What happens if a worker gets bored at work? They've been doing this job for 6 months. It's a simple job, and they're just sick of it. Where do you think their brain goes? Where do you think their excess brain power is going if we don't give them another positive goal to work for? Do you think they're going to go to the happy place in their head? Oh, I just love everyone, people, and life. Or do you think they're going to go to the dark place in their head? Man, they must not care about me. They got me here doing this. My boss hasn't came by in 2 weeks. God, he must not care. I'm probably going to get fired. Why am I even trying? We want to make sure that we're giving people every opportunity to engage their brain to the maximum ability that we can. How can we do that without moving people up in positions, which we should be doing, but we can't always do? Well, do you have extra tasks, going back to the knowledge or responsibilities? Do you have extra responsibilities you just don't have time to handle? Is there someone in your area that could use some extra practice or something extra to focus on that could help you out? Would that be good for you? Would that be good for them? Would that be good for the company? Making best use of each person's ability is about making or helping your people get to the point that they can do not just their job, but they can do your job. And if you do it right, they can do your job better than you. That is how you move upward, outward, and onward. That is how they move to take that spot. The most successful leaders are trying to make people better than them. And it's a hard thing to let go. Man, I get kudos for my 3853 reports. Man, everyone just loves them. They're so colorful and beautiful. If I can get someone to make 2358 reports and do it better, it may feel like I'm taking something away from myself, but I'm actually helping myself and I'm helping them. We got to make sure we're making best use of everyone's abilities. So we're talking about the preventive side of job relations. Just those 4 foundations alone, in my experience, can prevent 99.956863%. I don't know, but a lot of the problems are caused because we're not setting expectations. We're not telling people in advance about changes. We're not giving credit when due, and we're not making best use of each person's ability. People's brains get bored, and boredom leads to wandering, and wandering leads to trouble. We got to make sure that we're focusing on being consistent on these foundations more and more and more. Job relations and the skill in leading is not about getting others to do stuff. It's about fixing our behaviors so we can better help people want to follow us. It's a gut check. It's my favorite part of the TWI program. Job instruction is a great tool. It's a stress saver. It's a communication builder. But job relations can take what is already good and turn it into something amazing. Imagine if everyone used those 4 foundations each and every day, and you never had someone that held back what they really thought about things, and they said, hey, here's my expectations, you're falling a little below. Would you like that? What if every single supervisor out there, when someone did something above and beyond what they normally do, they said, man, high five, that's sweet. What if every supervisor out there, every single time there was a change, said, hey, this change is coming up in the future. Here's why this change is happening. Man, what can we do to make this change go as smooth as possible? What if every single supervisor was out there finding new jobs, new tasks, to make sure our entire team is consistently engaging in their growth in the company, in their growth in their jobs, in their growth in their individual skills? 99% of our problems would be gone. But we're humans. We're flawed. Our job isn't to be perfect at these things. Our job is to improve little by little each and every day. And 5-10 years down the road, we're going to be in a whole lot better place than we were before. Could happen quicker than that. I've seen people turn it around just like this. But there's no such thing as a quick fix for leadership. It's a lifelong battle. We have emotions. Emotions get in the way of rational decisions. So that brings us to the other side of job relations. What do we do when a problem does come up? Say an employee, they've showed up late 16 times and, man, I've got to do something about this now. Well, we should have done something the first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time, the fifth time, the sixth time. However, we will never be able to 100% be on top of things. So when these problems do pop up, there's an organized process to help us get better results out of the action we take. So again, it's a 4-step process. I'll show that to you on your screen. I'll show you my little handy dandy card. Oh, there's my camera. So under this 4-step process, the first thing that we teach folks in job relations, if you need to solve a problem, first you have to have a destination. What does the end goal look like? What's our objective? We find an objective. Once we got our objective, that's always in the positive. It can never be fire employee A. But once we get our objective with something along the lines of, hey, I want employee A to show up on time. That's a positive objective. Then we go to step 1. We get all the facts. These aren't just the facts that I want to see. These are all the facts from as many angles as we can look. First, we look in the history, the record of the individual, not just the individual. I got to look at the record of myself. I've got to look at my consistency, not just myself. I've got to look at the record. I've got to look at the record of the process. The group, is everyone showing up late? I look at the history to find patterns. Next, I look for facts and rules and customs. What does the rule state written? Policy, we have to follow it. And what does the custom say as well? Well, rule states everyone has to be on time. Custom is, depends on who your supervisor is. Depends on how much they like you. We've got to consider the written rule as well as the custom in solving problems. Because remember, we're not trying to punish anyone by solving the problem. We're trying to help them fix their behavior. I cannot do that if I'm not looking at the entirety of the situation. I need their help. To get their help, I've got to make sure that I'm being fair and consistent. So the next thing I do is I talk to the individual. Hey man, come on in. Let's talk about your attendance. What's going on? Get all the facts from that individual. I am taking what they say, whether it's right or wrong. Opinions and feelings are facts. Because regardless of whether I believe it, whether it's right or wrong, man, I was on time every day for those last 6 days. Regardless of that's right or wrong, I have to accept that as a fact to them. Because if I do not, if I don't accept their reality, their facts, as at least a consideration in solving the problem, how the heck will I ever get them to want to help me solve this problem? I can't solve this problem without their help, can I? If I tell you the sky is blue, or if I tell you the sky is pink, am I wrong? Well, you could call me wrong. You can argue with me your entire life about it. You could. Or you could get the fact that, man, Nick thinks the sky is pink. He must be on drugs. And the fact that 99.999% of people think it's blue. We'll get back into that here in step 2. So we talk to people, we get their opinions and feelings, and then we go into step 2, which is weighing the side. I've got to look at the situation, throw it all together, and then I've got to come up with possible actions. So first thing I do in step 2 is I fit those facts together. I consider their bearings on each other. Okay, this is where I take, Nick says the sky is pink. The guy's such an idiot. Everyone else says the sky is blue. How could that possibly be? Do you think that they're just saying that to get at me? What if Nick's colorblind? Just the time it takes to consider those two together will lead us to more truths in the entirety of the situation than anything else. Man, I could be colorblind. It could be sunset over the Colorado Rockies. It could be a million different things why I think the sky is pink. I can do one or two options. I can argue about it. Man, the sky's not pink. You're an idiot. Get out of here. Or I can try to understand why they would think that. Which one do you think would be more effective in getting people to want to help you solve this problem? We cannot solve it without their help. They're at the frickin' center of this problem. The most important facts come from them, but we're considering all the facts. So once I get a nice picture and everything makes sense in all my facts, I got this beautiful puzzle laid out and the picture's perfect. All the pieces are there. Well, probably not all, but most the pieces are there. Then I say, okay, what can I do about this? And I list out multiple possible actions. There's no such problem as a problem that only one thing can solve. There's always going to be multiple possible actions. Even if someone breaks a safety rule that's instant termination rule, you have to fire them. You have to. Is that the only possible action to consider? I better hope not. Think about all the other possible actions to consider. Well, how could this machine allow this to operate in an unsafe way? Oh, here's a possible action. Let's put a safety guard on it. Well, how could the others in the department train this person to do it that way? Here's a possible action. Let's look at the training, revamp our training. Another possible action, I've got to talk to the group. If I don't talk to the group, how will they know what happened, why it happened, and how to avoid it? Oh man, now I'm missing a person. I got to go to talk to Department B to get a backup. I got to go talk to HR to make sure we can get a fill-in. Even on the most black and white case problem, broke a safety violation, must get fired. I've got to look at all the different possible actions to do along with it. No problem is ever solved with one action. I've got to look at the group. I've got to look at the process. I've got to look at everything. So we have a list of 20 possible actions, we'll say, on this problem. And it can range from anything from talk to them to write them up to give them a hug to, man, there's a million different possible actions. I wouldn't recommend giving hugs in the workspace. Depending on who your people are, it might be okay. So we've got all these possible actions. That does not mean that we can take all those. So we check them against practices and policies. Can I, within company policy and ethical practices, do each one of these things? I don't want to get myself in trouble. I want to make sure I can do these. A possible action in any problem is punch them in the face. Sadly, job relations stops him from punching them in the face because it's against company policy, it's against ethical practices. So we have our first safety net built in to make sure I don't make poor choices. So now I've got this list of things I can do, but how do I know if they're going to be good or not? Okay. Now we take those and we compare them again. We look at them from different angles. How do I think this would turn out from the objectives angle? Get employee A to show up on time. From my angle, how would that affect me? From the employee's angle, from the group's angle, from production's angle. We look at it from as many angles as possible to figure out which one of these will actually turn out best. Typically, the best ideas to solve problems are not the first ones you think of. They're the weirder ones. I'm going to talk to the group about XYZ. I'm going to things that you normally wouldn't think of first off with an individual problem. Those are the ones that benefit production, individual, group, and the objective. So we look through all of them like that and we decide, all right, I'm going to take this one, this one, and this one. But before we take them, that's when we go into step 3, take action. I ask myself 3 simple questions. First off, is this my responsibility to do? Is it my responsibility to talk to the group? Yeah, that's my job as a supervisor. Second question I ask, do I have the ability? Do I need help in handling this? I'm pretty sure I have the ability to talk to the group. If not, I can go to Supervisor A. That guy's really good with talking to people. Third, do I have the authority? Well, do I have the authority to talk to my people? Yeah, but I don't know if I should about this. Maybe I should go talk to my boss. She knows a little bit better about the policies than me. Maybe it'd be best if I give that authority over. We've got to answer those 3 questions. If any one of those is a no, I don't, I've got to go get help. We cannot help our people if we don't have the skills or the authority, no matter how much responsibility we have for it. There's no shame in that. Go get help. So after that, we check those results. We took that action, we check those results, and we figure out how they turned out, and we make our adjustments. If we didn't reach our goal and employee A is still not showing up on time, the world's not over. We go back up to step one, get the facts. All right, so I did this, this, and this too. Didn't work, but this did a little bit, but X, Y, Z. And that's going to give us different possible actions. You may think that would take a lot of time to work through all your problems that way. But again, we're teaching a skill. Guess what happens with a skill? The first time you use it, are you going to be super sweet and go through it like a breeze? Well, probably because you're skipping stuff. Second time, third time. This is meant to be built in that we do it so many times, it's part of our natural thought process. So next time someone comes to me with a problem, I don't go, okay, let's figure that out and go through the card. Say, all right, what do we want to get out of this? What's our objective? All right, so what are the facts? Blah, blah, blah. And we can just run through it just like that. Again, it's a skill, only gained through repetition and practice. So I spend a lot of time on job instruction. A lot of time, you can see I get excited about job relations. A lot of time on job relations. This video is going to be like 3 hours long. So the last piece of skill that every supervisor has to have is a skill of improving methods. Improving processes. This is taught in the job methods portion of the TWI program. So this is the simplest of the TWI tools. This one didn't come about until, I believe, 44, 45. It was created after job instruction, job relations. However, it is a very important piece to every supervisor. There's a lot of process improvement throughout manufacturing right now. Kaizen, everyone knows what that is. Kanbans, 5S, what are those things called? I'm not a 5S expert, I apologize. But if you think about all the time, money, and effort we spend on processes, you would think, I don't need my people to improve the processes as well. Well, if you think about how long it takes to do one Kaizen event, how many people you got to get together? How long is the planning, the process, the implementation, the follow-up? How long does all that take? Now you times that by how many processes do you think there are in your plant? 100, 1,000, 10,000? How long would it take you to Kaizen every single process? Kanban, 5S every single process? We cannot rely on just event type things. We've got to give the individuals the skills and abilities to take a look at their process, break it down. Again, a 4-step process with a handy dandy, sweet, sweet card. 4-step process to first get all the details of the work. Everything. I'm walking 6 feet over to get that tool. I'm scrummaging through that toolbox for 15 minutes only to find the tool's not there. I go over here. To take those steps, detail them all out, and question those steps. Man, why do we do this? Is this the best place to do this? How's the best? We question each and every one of those details to give ourselves better ideas. Yeah, why do we do that? I don't know. I'm going to go find out. Oh, figure it out. We only did that for a previous customer. We don't have anymore. So I can eliminate that. And we eliminate, combine, or rearrange each detail of that job to make this huge, long process shrink down. Very similar to anything that you would see in continuous improvement. Now, here's where it gets sweet. If every supervisor could do that, but not just find better ways to improve the process, but to be able to sell it, first off to the operators. How do we sell it to the operators? Well, we freaking include their ideas, for one. Sell it to their supervisor. How do we sell it to our supervisor? Well, our supervisor's going to want to see numbers, data. Oh, they've got a packet. At the end of a job method, the individuals will be able to take a current method, have a spaghetti diagram or some sort of sketch on it. Proposed method, spaghetti diagram of what it looks like. Put on top of that is an improvement proposal sheet. It's my sales sheet. It's got data figures. It's got numbers. By doing XYZ, I can move this XYZ over here. XYZ, move this, make a cart, make a Kanban station. And by doing all this, I can save $60,000 over the next 6 months. I can save 25 hours over the next 1 year. I can save one worker position. We're trying to calculate everything we can to sell this the best we can. The number one reason good ideas die is because of lack of action or delayed action. The best way to get the action going is to have a good sales pitch. Not fluffed up, but a realistic, good sales pitch that's easy to read and easy to see. And now not only am I selling it to my supervisor, because even if they say, yeah, that's a good idea, let's get it going, I still got to sell this to quality department. I got to sell it to the safety department. I've got to sell it to EHS. No matter what kind of change I'm making, the individual supervisor, these are your team leads, your supervisors, managers, every single one of those individuals will be able to take a process, figure out ways to improve it, sell it to all of the parties needed before that process is implemented, so they can implement that on their own and then redo it again and again and again. Job methods is the simplest tool of the TWI toolset. However, it's the most difficult to get something out of. Why is it the most difficult? Because no matter how good your ideas are for improvement, if they don't have a good system for approvals or denials, and these stacks of 450 failed initiatives because no one has the time to look at them or approve them keeps piling up, it'll kill your morale and it'll make people not want to help with these changes. The best way to get people to help change things is give them a say in the change process. If every supervisor had the ability to make those changes happen, we improve our morale, save a ton of money, save a ton of time, but we've got to have a good approval system. That's my 1 star I'll put on job methods. We got to have a good approval system. Otherwise, everyone's going to get angry. It's no good. So again, I'll spend more time on each of these 3 modules. I'm going to give you more of a how-to video for job instruction, job relations, and job methods that may come out a little later. But this was the general overall view of what TWI is. I'll tell you, it's beautiful to think about. All I got to do is focus on these 5 things. Knowing my work, knowing my responsibilities, being able to train, being able to lead, being able to improve processes. If every single human focused on just improving these things this much every day, how many of our problems could we avoid? Man, 99%. However, it is not an easy thing to change an individual's habits. How many bad habits do you have as a leader? If you truly sit down and think about it, how many things have you overlooked you shouldn't have and said, I'll just go away on its own? How many times have you witnessed or been trained poorly? Trained people poorly yourself. And they just won't get it. It's their fault, not mine. How many times have we been beating our head and trying to do things the same way again and again and again, expecting different results and not getting different results because our process is broken? There's a lot of built-in habits in each and every one of us, myself included, that takes time to overcome. Job instruction, I'm telling you, you can get the most benefit out of that initially. People will be excited to go out and train better. But there's got to be some sort of support for that after the class. I always recommend having a champion, something along those lines. You can call them whatever you want. Helper, go-to, specialist, whatever you want to call them. Someone to continue to coach and mentor those individuals. Job instruction, they'll be excited to go train. But if they don't have the support, it'll shut it down. Job relations, hesitant, but everyone will want to do a little bit better at the end of job relations. If we don't foster that little bit of excitement about making yourself a better human to help others become better, again, we're not going to get the benefit out of it. Job methods, man, you can save a ton of money right off the bat if you have a good approval process that makes people want to continue to turn in these improvements. Why I'm bringing this up is TWI, in its core, and it's It's the basics of leadership. Uh, it's not something that can be done with little effort. If you do decide to take the TWI journey, I will always recommend that you take the time to train your own folks to teach these classes. Train your own folks or with the help of me, of course, if you like that. But train your folks to be self-sufficient. Because if this class only lasts when I'm there for that week, and then we say, yeah, that was good, and we forget about it, it's not worth your time. Financially, it's worth my time, but that's not why I do this. I do this because I want to make some changes to help people have a little less stress, to help America go a little smoother. And I really do believe these tools will help do that. If there's any questions, comments, concerns over TWI, again, this is a short hour or so overview. Feel free to send me an email. There's a contact link. There should be somewhere down somewhere. I don't know. The website's not 100% complete yet. I haven't even seen it. Please feel free to ask me anything. Again, I'll be making a video for job instruction, job relations, and job methods. May get to that one a little later, but at least job instruction and job relations in the next coming weeks. Thank you very much.